my, this is gonna be delightful, buddy. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to the Arcane Archive. That's right, and today we have another incredible episode of Cautionary Chronicles for you. Indeedy. Don't we have quite an amazing thing planned out for them today, Sammy?
Yeah, I think we have a good spread.
Nice spread, a pretty decent array we have for you today. Honestly, I'm quite excited because, as with everything, me and Sammy have kind of been, tinkering here or there, maybe trying to figure out like the different kind of flavor or themes and stuff that we kind of want to do for these to, spice it up a little bit, as it were, give a little bit of variety here or there. And I kind of do like what we got for you today. A little bit of everything, I feel, except I will say, obviously, in today's, I feel like these particular stories, they aren't as like overtly degenerate as some of them can be. They're much more I feel like almost mechanical in nature in a lot of ways, which I personally appreciate because it kind of harkens back to the days when we were more meta talks and such, which we should really get back into, I think, at some point, since, with the whole releasing of the new 2024 edition and shit of 5e, which has changed some stuff. We've been talking a bit about that. So there's a little something for you guys to look forward to. But, as always, with that being the case, please do be sure to like and comment down the video, about how you guys are thinking about the stories, what we're doing here, maybe some other particular topics or things you want us to make some videos on. Be sure to subscribe and share the channel. It helps out immensely. We primarily, rely on kind of word of mouth and such to really get the channel out there. So any support you could offer is highly appreciated and thankful. And of course, last but not least, please be sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the videos that we post every Wednesday for your enjoyment and entertainment. Well, with that, all of the housekeeping done, let's go ahead. Let's just dive right on into today's first episode story. This one is titled The Player Who Loves D&D But Doesn't Play It by Time Tap. TLDR, I rambled a lot, but basically a player kept ditching our group, and when we finally realized we were playing without him, or when he finally realized we were playing without him, he got mad about it. So, honestly, I probably could have picked a better title, and this might not really be much of a horror story, but, well, just hear me out, okay? Also, English isn't my first language, so sorry in advance. I've got a group of friends I've known for quite a long time now. I love them to absolute bits. And a few years ago, like 4 years or so now, they said they wanted to try to play D&D. I was already super into D&D back then, currently playing and DMing a lot at the time. So they asked me to DM for them. So we started playing in this homebrew world I made, and for the most part, it went really well. And I mean, really well. There were 5 players in total and me as the GM. I know my friends don't like, all the same stuff exactly, so I made sure that there was a bit of everything in the game. Some of them really love role-playing, while others were more into combat and exploration. And up to this point, things were fine, right? But after about a year or so, some problems did start popping up. One of my players, who's a really good friend of mine, likes to play combo characters, min-maxed ones. I'm not quite sure what the right word is, and honestly, I don't mind either of those concepts. The issue is more with him as a player. He usually loves to build these super min-max characters that are amazing at one thing, but kind of useless in everything else. I feel like he gets so into the mechanics that he doesn't stop to think if he'll even actually enjoy playing the character itself. Which that's a huge thing I think a lot of people suffer from at times, which I'm very happy he touched upon that because that is a thing I'd like to discuss later. But continuing on. So the first problem started when he came to me saying he wasn't enjoying his character. The first one in that campaign, which honestly is fine. We're not always going to love all of our characters the entirety of time, right? So I told him he could make a new one, and I figured I'd find a way to blend the new character in and kind of fade the old one out. No big deal. I just wanted him to play something that he'd enjoy even more. And surprise, surprise, he started as a fighter, but then came back with a rogue multiclass because, in his own words, now I can do absurd amount of damage. Which Cool, if that's what he's into, whatever. I think that character lasted, a total of 5 sessions, maybe? Then he immediately wanted to change again. And this has been going on now for years. I have honestly lost track of how many characters he's switched through. But hey, I usually just let him do his thing. It's just not really the problem. Not really the problem. The real problem started during our last few sessions, which, for context, were almost a year ago now, and you'll see why. He was there, but not present, if you know what I mean. Since we don't all live in the same city, we play online. But I noticed that during the sessions, he wasn't doing, well, anything. Like, no talking, no taking action, nothing. During combat, he would say things sometimes, but only when I called on him because of initiative. I figured maybe he was just tired. Life happens and all that. However, it just kept getting worse. Then he just straight up didn't show up for a session one time and sent a message a few hours later saying he was sorry, but someone called him to play football and he forgot to let us know. That happened once. Then it happened twice. And by the third time at that point, I just stopped scheduling sessions altogether. All right, look, no one's forcing you to play D&D if you don't want to, right? But at the very least, I feel you should give us the professional and personal, in fact, courtesy of just saying so. You don't have to come, but at least give us a heads up about it. All right, fast forward a few months, and on one random Tuesday, I wake up to an absolute ridiculous amount of text from this player asking, when's our next session? I really want to play. I'm craving D&D. Where's everybody at? So I responded saying, we're already playing a different campaign with another group. We told you about it, and you didn't care. We don't play that campaign anymore. Now, for some context, 3 players and I had started a new campaign. The 4th player didn't have much time anymore and decided not to join. And when we told our friend, he couldn't have cared less. So we just moved on. Apparently, though, he was absolutely appalled by this. Like, legitimately offended somehow. He hit us with this whole, but I love D&D. How could you do this? And claimed we weren't being understanding enough. He seriously, legitimately expected us to just sit around and wait for him to be in the mood to play. And only when he could or wanted to or felt like it. He spent literal months without even mentioning playing at all. He just did his own thing. And then, out of the blue, when he suddenly decides he's all of a sudden in love with D&D again and wants to play, he's shocked that we're already playing without him. Like, dude, no. Just no. Now, here's where the horror story really starts. I don't know. I feel like you've already been here for a while, but just saying. He began aggressively texting the group, calling us assholes and a lot worse. It wasn't in English, so I'm not entirely sure how all the translations will go. But either way, it began to escalate to personal insults. And that's where I finally drew the line completely. Look, he was a very good friend of mine, but this is not how you handle things, okay? He could have just talked to us like adults. Maybe we could have set up a one-shot or something, to scratch that itch he was having. But you can't act that irresponsibly and inconsiderately and then expect people to just coddle you or wait around forever for your convenience. So we ended up kicking him out of the group. I didn't block him or anything, but he hasn't reached out to me since. And honestly, it's sad. We've been friends for so long, and it's just like, why couldn't he just talk to us like adults? Things could have been handled so much better overall. But oh well, I guess. And don't get me wrong, I do still care about him. And I still think that he's a good person. But honestly, I just don't think he's in the right place right now. In post. So right off the bat, what do you think about this one, Sammy?
I mean, it's weird, right? I guess I've come in contact with people like this before who love the building aspect of a tabletop game like D&D, but don't actually like the interaction side. Um, and I get it. It's like just go play an RPG on your on a computer or gaming console. Um, but I also it's weird because I've had the experience of people of someone like leaving for a reason and then just never coming back, never saying anything, never responding to anything, never talking to anyone again for conceivably no reason. It's a bit tough. This person is weird in my opinion. Like it's it sounds like they were the ones who started not interacting and then when they were excluded, it wasn't necessarily like uh, I don't know. Like it wasn't like he got singled out. The DM
No.
stopped scheduling sessions for the whole group, and then later on, the group who still wanted to play made an effort to communicate with each other and start another game.
Hmm.
Now, I could see someone seeing that as like, well, you didn't want to include me, but also you didn't seem to have any interest for months. Because, like, I don't know, if one of my campaigns fell apart today, within a week or two, I'd be messaging people. Quite possibly within the day, I'd be messaging people to see if we could start
Start
something
something
else.
up. Yeah. I'd be like, hey, is anybody down for something, whatever, It's like, yeah. I mean, so when I read this is something that I do also feel like I love the title right away. The player who loves D&D but doesn't play it. And I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like this is the case for a lot of people. And you and I have talked a lot about this particular topic of like, scheduling, right? Dedication and commitment. This hobby, this game, while it is a game, it also is a to really play it, to really be able to play it well and to really, experience it in its totality and fullness, it is a commitment. And it does require dedication for it to really be able to pay off. And I know there's a lot of people who like, yeah, they don't for whatever reason have the ability or the capacity to really commit to even this, by all standards of measurement, a pretty, casual, just, hey, we're going to get together with a group of people that we all, hopefully like for the most part, to play a game and a hobby that we enjoy that helps brighten our lives a little bit, right? Helps give us a little bit, lightens the load, makes us have some fun, some imagination, some fantasy. It can really be quite therapeutic and healthy, actually, if done right. But, there are certain people like this. And like I said, to your point, I absolutely agree that there are multiple aspects to the game. And people can certainly have, preferences for which aspect that they kind of lean more towards or like more towards and feel fulfilled more in. Some people, yeah, love the role play aspect. They just love the acting out and the pretend and the narrative story of it and stuff that they can create and manifest with each other. Other people love the more mechanic number crunchy side of it, right? Where you can just like, you can do all these cool builds and combinations for classes and abilities. And, you can get those big, uber buco damage numbers or super ridiculously high skill modifiers and such. And some people just love like the lore aspect of it, being able to create and establish lore and, and learn more about the world and stuff all around, and nothing wrong with any of that, right? Everybody can have their preference. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of that. Me and Sammy, again, his fucking name right there showcases. Me and Sammy both have always been arbitrators for, yeah, it's okay to be a power gamer. It's okay to be a so-called min-maxer or whatever. There's nothing inherently wrong or bad about that. Just like there's nothing inherently wrong or bad about having a less than optimal character, less than optimal character who's maybe not great at a lot of shit, like if you are having fun with that and as long as it's not negatively impacting anyone else at the table, like to an actual reasonable way or extent, go crazy, more power to you. The issue comes, and even the GM, what I also did particularly love about this post is that the OP, the way they structure and explain things and say things. Like, I think this OP is a phenomenal GM from the sounds of it. It sounded like they did their best to really try and incorporate everything for everybody, or at least a little something for everybody as they could. He was incredibly like willing and allowing and compromising with the problem player to change up his character multiple times. And while I think maybe he went a little bit overboard with it, because at some point, because that was obviously not the real issue there, you know. If it becomes a habit, it becomes clear. It's like, okay, your character isn't the issue. It's clear that you are just losing interest yourself rather than switching. So a constant switching up of characters, like, I mean, that, because then it also gets hard to really start to like attach your character to the narrative anymore if you're just going to keep switching it up on them, right? The longer characters are involved in a story or a campaign or narrative, it's much easier for the GM to then, okay, yeah, you have had experiences. You are now enmeshed, right? You are now what is the word? What is the word, Sam, when you become involved, or you're invested? That's the word. You are invested in the world because your character has spent time making an actual effect and change and living here. And it's easier for the GM to then weave in backstory and other people who are also affected or have connections with your character. Harder to do that when you keep switching it out every week or so. On top of that, but he was also, the GM didn't care about min-max characters. When the problem player comes back and is like, yeah, my new character now can do like insane, crazy damage. The GM, the OP wasn't like, oh no, like he was like, all right, nothing wrong with that if that's what you're into. If that's what makes you enjoy the game and have fun, more power to you. And again, as long as he is not using those powers for like, douchebaggery supreme, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's okay to be a powerful character. I have a personal desire or preference for having powerful characters because I like that. I like being able to be effective and powerful in that way. That is a fulfillment of mine that I get from the game. But clearly the real issue is that he just, and I think what happened here is, sometimes you get burnt out. Sometimes even in the things we love the most, you get into those states, those state of minds or places or whatever, where you kind of just maybe you lose interest in this hobby for a little while, right? If you're doing it for a long time, I mean, if they were literally doing it for like literal years before this kind of started to happen or whatever, it's like, hey, it happens. That's okay. I think the real issue is, of course, is that the problem player just started acting like an absolute asshole. Like he didn't, if these are supposed to be your really close friends, like, yeah, like OP himself literally asks, like, why couldn't you guys just talk like adults? He could have just communicated clearly, like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm things maybe in my life are kind of not great right now. Like they've been rather difficult. I've kind of lost, a bit of that passion or that spark for the game presently. And so I'm going to step away for a little bit. I'm going to step back a little bit. I got to shift my attention or my focus to some other aspects of my life at the moment. Nothing wrong with that. Like the OP literally says, nobody's forcing you to play D&D. Life happens. Like it would be completely understandable. Again, OP seems incredibly reasonable and fair. Like I love this. OP, if you ever see this, I would absolutely love to play D&D with you sometime. Like that, you sound like an amazing DM and an amazing player. Just, it would be an absolute delight, I think. And obviously the biggest red flag though here, of course, is right at the end where, all right, dude basically kind of just slowly, disappears from the group, right? Stops communicating, doesn't really talk too much. And the group, they don't necessarily judge him for it right away. Maybe they should have, but they don't. They just kind of move on. They're like, all right, whatever. And then, months later, he comes back with this whole expectation of like, yo, when's the next session? Like, I'm craving some D&D. I want to play. Let's go. What are we doing? Where's everybody at? And they're like, hey man, we told you a while ago, like we're not doing that campaign anymore. Like we're part of a different campaign now. And then the dude literally takes like personal offense to that. Like he's just like he literally just like, what the like, how could you guys leave me? Like, what do you mean? I love D&D. How come you guys aren't just just folding up every other plan or aspect of your life to cater to my needs and to spoil and indulge me. Like, where it's like, okay, where are we going? What's going on here? Feels like this escalated really freaking quick out of nowhere. And I have the distinct feeling that maybe, yeah, something maybe kind of heavy or depressing is going on in his life. And
Yeah.
he was maybe really desperately looking for some escape, you know? Like he was really desperate, like, I need some D&D like immediately, because like my life right now is so fucking bad that I can't. Like, and I guess he was just kind of, yeah, expecting his friend. Like, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what was going through this guy's head. It sounds to me like he was incredibly desperate, because with that instant like reaction that he had, and to such an intense extent, I feel like something else was going on here, and he just took it out on them because they were easy to, and he just, yeah, and that's unfortunate. It is, because you can't. This is a hobby. This is a thing where you do have to have a decent baseline modicum amount of respect and consideration for the other people involved, especially if you play with them for a while, if you consider them friends. You do owe them at least, I mean, technically speaking, no, you don't owe them an explanation, I guess, but you would hope that if you actually did care about this game, if you care about your friends and the people you play with, that you would believe that you owe them an explanation of like what's going on, what's happening, and at least to respect that they also have their lives and their time. Like, if he had just communicated more clearly, been able to share maybe what was going on, a lot of this would be completely different, especially because, OP is still like, hey, I still care about him. OP still thinks he's a good person. And, there's clearly something going on with him, and he's not willing to really communicate clearly about it. And that's always where a lot of shit goes wrong, right? Clear, just open communication is usually always the cornerstone of any actually healthy relationship, whether it be platonic, romantic, familial, anything. Just, you need to be able to communicate something. You don't have, not everything. You don't have to be perfect, but just even just a baseline, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going through some shit right now. Doesn't necessarily, make your actions okay, but it does at least give a legitimate like reason, as well as it then gives an opportunity for the other person. You put out an olive branch, right? It gives the other person an opportunity to be there to support you, because that's what friends, that's what family, that's what loved ones, partners, are for. They're there to help support you when you might need it, when you're feeling particularly heavy or down. But they can't do that if you do not give them the opportunity to first. Nobody can forcibly save you or help you if you don't want it, and if you don't seek it out or ask it. But yeah, one particular comment, the top voted comment down here, that I like is, dude goes, that's rough. I've never had the nasty response part, but I have had plenty of love D&D and never play players. I can't tell you the number of times I have a few people that, while hanging out, mention they would love to start a short, 5 to 6 session campaign, or maybe even just a 3 session one. And the sessions 0 and 1 go really well, but then suddenly everyone is busy every weekend. However, that doesn't stop them from messaging me every week with a, hey, you should see if everyone is down to play. Because, of course, for some reason, I have to be the one to schedule that too. They can't take it into their own hands. But, I even had times when the person messaging me is the one that says they can't make it. I had someone want to start a tabletop campaign right before leaving for 6 months. At this point, unless multiple people pester me repeatedly, I don't usually assume the game will happen. I've wasted tens of hours only for the campaign to fizzle out or never happen for me to put much effort into them anymore. I get people get busy, but don't hit me up 8 months later like, hey, can we play session 2? After you were busy for 16 weekends straight. And that's fair, in my opinion. Like, yeah, people unfortunately are very flaky, and they're not very dependable and consistent, in my experience. And that really is the bane of most D&D campaigns. It's usually not, contrary to maybe popular belief, even here on Reddit, like, all of these stories we read, these are actually not the vast majority of reasons why most campaigns fail or get messed up. It's usually just because of people not being able to schedule time. Time, in my opinion, it's every human's most valuable commodity, because it's one of the very few things that you'll never get back. And with that in mind, I always do my best to try and utilize and schedule my time as wisely and, you know, I guess, efficiently as possible because I want to make sure I enjoy my time. I want to enjoy my time more, or I want to say that I had more enjoyable time than shitty time, right? And it's all about you have to make it. You have to make time is what it is. Everybody always can say to make the excuse of like, well, I'm busy. Well, everybody is or can be busy, you know? It
Yeah.
really is just about what you choose to do. And you have a lot more power and control over that than maybe a lot of people want to acknowledge or admit, but you do. Um, but with that, you know what? Unless do you have any other thoughts on this one, Sammy?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next story then, buddy. Go ahead and take it away.
All right, I have kicked a player for constant meltdowns. This one is an interesting one.
Yeah, we got, a little bit of a similar theme here of like kind of some meltdown blow up players who get kicked. So let's see what this dude's major malfunction is, shall we?
Yeah, well, let's see. I kicked this player a long time ago, so I feel comfortable sharing at this point. So here goes. There were dozens of reasons why we ultimately ended up kicking this player, but listing every teeny tiny thing isn't worth it. The cast recently edited the letters into fake names to better suit the forum guidelines. Me, the DM, problem player, we'll call Pam. Pam's girlfriend, who we'll call Gina. Self-explanatory, I like Gina, but she was the problem player's girlfriend, which made me reluctant to kick problem player earlier since I presumed they'd be a package deal. And well, Gina was way cooler than Pam, and I enjoy having her around. The three other players, I'll call Abby, B, and Craig. Pam would constantly try to fight me on rules, interrupting combat so I could read the rules aloud to her and prove that I was following them. This would turn what should have been 1 hour of combat to 2 or more hours. If Pam made a bad call in the story or in combat, she would scream directly into the microphone and demand that I let her redo the entire scene. For example, once her character stepped into a trap and she had a screaming fit because she wasn't allowed to redo her approach. Sometimes I would let her do it just to save my energy. That's mistake number one. Other
Yeah.
times, if I refused to budge and she wasn't in the mood to scream, she would often mute her mic and then leave paragraphs of self-flagellating apology.
Oh boy. I know these types. I know these types
Sorry,
well.
flagellating.
Yeah.
Pam refused to communicate honestly about content that made her uncomfortable. I take things like triggers, player safety, and even mild discomfort very seriously, especially during session zero. However, on multiple occasions, she had meltdowns about other player actions that would at least bring the session, or at best bring the session to a screeching halt. For example, Abby and Craig wanted to kill an NPC to sneak into a building, or B's character yelling at Pam's character. But no matter how many times I asked her to tell me what kind of content she was uncomfortable with, she would always answer that she was comfortable with anything. That nothing you can really do
Uh
about that one.
remember acolytes we just talked about literally 2 seconds ago, communication, how that's paramount to basically almost everything. Yeah, there's notice a stark lacking of something of a specific element here that could be just easily remedied if there was just a very small specific thing that could have been done here. Who's to know though? Who knows what could have happened to fix this, right, Sammy? I mean, come on now. Let's be honest here. There
Sure.
was no way to fix this. Let's be honest. Nothing that could have been
No,
done.
never, no,
Hmm.
not at all, actually.
No, absolutely not.
Nope. Um, the final nail in the coffin wasn't even in a session, but during some downtime. We were all hanging out. We were all talking about enjoying horror games. Pam bemoaned her disdain for horror games and, unable to bear hearing a normal conversation about people enjoying a thing that she didn't like, had an absolute crying, sobbing meltdown and once again left chat, hurtling it toward an awkward, uncomfortable silence. After months of her constantly having meltdowns, no matter how much we tried to communicate with her so we could avoid triggering said meltdowns, at a certain point, friendship and compassion isn't enough. None of us were having fun anymore. I did my best to be kind and compassionate when I told her she was no longer going to be a part of our games, and I do hope she finds happiness and friends that mesh better with her. But I will say, ever since game night has gone smoothly, and my players have been way more excited to play. Now I don't know if you've met people like this before.
Oh, I
I
have.
have.
Yes, I have.
There was someone in that I went to high school with who was like this, who any just any at all, um, whether it's attention towards or just it doesn't even matter. Towards her in even like a not positive but not negative way, she would just have a meltdown. Doesn't matter where we were, doesn't matter if you're in class, you're not in class. And it was like to the point of being like pathetic.
Yeah.
Um yeah, it was
These
no.
these types of people, I will say I think it's a personal aspect of myself that I struggle to have any real kind of empathy or sympathy for people like this. Um because I really have very little to no tolerance for just unabashed, just fucked up weakness, basically. Like this, because this right here is like she's again. If there are issues that you're having because maybe you have certain trauma or you've had experiences or pain or anything else like that, okay, understandable. You have certain comfort levels, tolerance levels, like we all do. That's okay. But if that is the case, if you were going to have things that trigger you so easily or to such an extent where you would literally just start to react in such a visceral, intense manner, then you need to be able to fucking communicate that shit. Like straight up. And on top of that, you either that or you need to be able to rein that shit in. You need to be able to control and master yourself, your reactions, your emotional responses to play this game. And if you can't, then the reality of it is, and whether this might sound harsh or not, perhaps you shouldn't be playing then. If you are in such a vulnerable, fragile state where even the slightest things of either role playing or doing things just in part of the game that is a pretty natural part of the game, if that triggers you, then that might be an indicator that maybe you shouldn't be playing, that you need to maybe step away for a bit, do some more work on yourself to get back to a more balanced, stable state before you want to start engaging in things like this. On the other hand, of course, there is such a thing as like, for instance, if a GM or party members are doing some pretty dark, maybe even like disgusting, degenerate shit, that's something else, right? It's like if they're doing shit like they're just doing some absolutely irredeemable crap that you're just like, what the hell is this? Like you can be uncomfortable about that. Ironically, if most players are doing that, if it's not just the one player, the answer, ironically, probably still the same, and that you should probably just leave that group and let them do whatever the hell they want to do. But if it's if someone's doing something, it is kind of just like like disgusting, nasty, horrendous, torturous, and it's one player, and you're like, whoa, that makes me kind of uncomfortable. That's fine. Once again, though, the best thing to do is communicate that. Have a communication with that player to be like, hey, I just want to let you know that this would kind of make me uncomfortable. I don't really understand why your character is doing that. Like, why? Like, can we maybe have a conversation about this? Like, because I'm not really enjoying this right now. And
Yeah.
if your GM is a good GM, they will take that and be like, yeah, you know what? Hang on, let's just because again, like the past GM says, it's about enjoying the game. It's about having fun. And you take shit seriously. Hell, about this GM's like, we take shit seriously. If a person has some issues or problems, now again, not every issue and problem a person has, I think, is automatically reasonable, right? Like if you have a person who's like, oh well, my character has like, a lot of scars and stuff from their backstory being like, a soldier or warrior, and like you're describing kind of the stars and how like, they each kind of really have a defining trait or feature of your character, and a person like, yeah, I don't like that. It makes me feel kind of queasy. Can you please not have scars on your character? Where it's like, okay, I mean, it's kind of an important aspect of my character to show that he's gone through a lot of things physically. He's been through a lot. He's a grizzled individual. He's like, yeah, but I feel kind of it's kind of nasty. I don't really like that. Like it's just like, yeah. And it's like, okay, see that that does kind of start to impact, the player's experience, both players' experience, right? And it's like, sure, if you find, body horror or and technically speaking, it's not even body horror or whatever, cringe and stuff, it's like, well, sure, yeah, but you also have to be respectful and considerate of that player as well, who was like, well, I put thought into this and I wanted to really, express this and do this thing. This is my character. This is how I want to depict them.
Yeah.
It would be the same thing as being like, oh, you see a disfigured individual in real life. Like, and you wouldn't literally just tell that person, like, can you just not be in front of me? Because you disgust me. Like, I'm getting queasy because like your face just like you wouldn't say that kind of thing to a real person. At least I certainly hope you wouldn't, because that's pretty fucked up. It's not obviously one for one the same, but it's the same concept here as well, where it's just like, hey, this is still their character that they wanted to portray and to do, and even if it might make you feel a ways, there is something to be said about, well, you considering them and their point as well. Like, sometimes you got to be able to compromise with each other,
Yeah.
and I think it's good for people to be able to learn how to deal with some of their discomfort as well. Being able to manage and deal with your discomfort, I think, is an absolute vital, amazing skill to have that not a lot of people cultivate enough. But that being the case, with this here, I feel like that's kind of the biggest aspect for this. So for the problem player, Pam, I feel like she literally has absolutely zero ability, desire, or training in learning how to handle and cope and deal with her discomfort. She's clearly uncomfortable with a lot of things, with failing, with whatever. She clearly has a lot of personal shit going on that she is not handling or working through well. And maybe if she had, she wouldn't be so affected by shit to such an extreme extent. And it's unfortunate. I would have been interested to know kind of like what she said when OP kind of told her that she wasn't a part of the group anymore. I would have liked to know kind of how she reacted to that, because I wonder if Pam is even really aware of, like, how problematic or how intense or how, even crazy sometimes she can maybe come off, because that is, I found a pretty common trait, is that a lot of people maybe don't even recognize or realize just how, like, ridiculous they can be, and just how unfair, just how harmful or toxic they come off with, not being able to cope or work through some of their own personal discomfort, right? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, at the end of the day, your personal discomfort or trauma and stuff, like, the reality of it is that you need to be able to work through it yourself. Nobody is going to be able to do it for you. And trying to run away from it all the time by basically being like, hey, don't ever talk about this or bring this up because it triggers me. And it's like, well, okay. But then how, you can't keep asking and expecting other people to constantly change for you if you're not also making an effort, like, to accommodate you, if you're not also making an effort to really work through and grow and heal from that trauma. At
That's
some
yeah.
at some point, you can't just constantly ask for, favors and people doing what you want. The reason that people do that, the reason people would give that grace, is because they at least would hope or expect that it's you are trying to heal yourself. You're trying to get back to a place where that no longer triggers you and it no longer can hurt you constantly and arbitrarily out of nowhere. And if you're not doing that, then at that point, it's like, well, now it seems maybe you're just using it as an excuse to be able to get what you want, or to have people do whatever. And maybe that's maybe a bit of a hot take, but that's, in my experience up to this point, from what I've seen, from what I've heard, from what I've personally experienced numerous times, that is a lot of the viewpoints that I've been able to garner with that. Um, any other thoughts you kind of have on this, buddy?
No, I think it's just it's a very relevant issue that it's people who are ill-adjusted to just being able to function socially. And it's an issue that we've talked about before. So
Yeah.
it's obviously nothing super new. But it is something to be aware of when I guess, figuring out the group you're going to play with.
I mean, yeah, engaging in a very social game, um, with many specific aspects, that one could consider risky for, triggers. Um, yeah, I mean, it's also kind of just life, man, in general, It's like it's hard, man. It's hard to navigate. You're never gonna please everybody all the time, but that's why it's really about less so maybe about trying to change everybody else, and you gotta, it's more about changing yourself and mastering yourself. Yeah. But with that, I believe that we've said all we can about this one. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next story of the day. This one's also quite interesting. I have a personal kind of some feelings and experiences very similar to this story. It's titled "The Overly Bleak Reach" by Cautionary. So I had fun in the early part of a recent campaign, and I'm grateful to our GM. But overall, this one went poorly in a memorable way. We were playing a game called Godbound, whose premise is that you're granted divine power and get to radically reshape the world. I like the sound of that. I might be interested in this Godbound game. At level 1, a PC can likely pummel 3 generic bandits without using any powers, and can easily start as an experienced mage, mystic martial artist, wielder of a mighty artifact, etc. Oh yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by this. To gain levels, you need to change the world by spending earned Dominion points. And Dominions can do things like train the peasants as soldiers, /engineers, /mages, or turn people into werewolves with no drawbacks, or even create permanent ideal weather over this region. We began play in a land called the Bleak Reach, and we weren't godbound just yet. We were common mortals. We explored the area around our desperate village of ragtag survivors looking for help or resources that we could find. We raided a crazy factory of cyborg zombies and then delved into the local ancient ruin. And in the process, we narrowly survived battles with one, I guess, high damage monsters and got promoted to heroic mortal status, beginning to get much tougher than normal people at this point. Then a giant monster bled on us, and that justified why we were now Godborn, ready to save the world. This was all fun. Now, my character, Mason, was from a country known as Lan, which is very militant, atheist, basically like revolutionary France. He was conflicted about having divine power and never sought worship, only to try and invoke heroism. Our party looked at the situation from our newly empowered perspective. Village was a mess. Entire north coast of the Bleak Reach seemed to have been murdered recently. Alam was invading from the east. So, we decided probably the best course of action would be to relocate the villagers with our powers. We scouted the west, and our options were a village of deformed people who wouldn't shut up about how ugly outsiders are, and a coast with fish people. The Fishman King, immediately upon our introduction, mind-controlled several of us. He talked Mason into spending Dominion on shape-shifting the civilians into more fish people to live in this underwater kingdom. Most of them... I see what he says. To shift into the underwater kingdom, which included to be most of them. One other PC, we'll call him Vamp, was now a vampire/lich. Cool. Who took charge of the rest. So we had saved the villagers. Yay! All right. Anyway, now Bleak Reach's canon description says the coastline is a tolerable place full of refugee settlements, and the interior has mysterious evils that somehow cause every kingdom building attempt there to fail within years. To me, that means monsters and curses of the type Godbound are meant to overpower, gradually denting the zone of horror and building a new land. The locals can't handle a curse or a dragon, and the PCs get to be cool heroes fixing all of that stuff. We encountered, upon our arrival, a giant gore doll spider I think we were actually able to kill. After that was a nightmare monster that somehow escaped destruction, a hive of xenomorphs that survived a combined attack, including minions, magic, and Mason flying overhead and shredding all of the ground in a huge area, an unbeatable mecha Godzilla, and to get stronger, we pried open a distant ruin full of lasers, and with no warning, it set off an explosion so huge it blew up half a city miles away, killing countless people. Jesus, this game sounds like it's freaking like acid on crack or some shit. What the hell? What are we doing? Uh, then we faced a set of hell portals in the Central Mountains. I think we did actually seal one, and after 2 massive battles, we entered another to slaughter the demon court behind it. Unbeatable, effectively, until Mason used a once-ever power to become so unstoppable, he beat the demon lord to death with his fists. All right? A true victory that would meaningfully change things. Jesus, I mean, this is a lot. This is intense. This is some epic shit here, but also just very intense in general. GM said that wasn't the far end of the hell dimension, and any remaining baddies could potentially reopen it someday. Awesome. Awesome sauce. Way to really just subvert any real feeling of accomplishment there. Cool. Anyway, meanwhile, the GM introduces a robot, a friend's character. He was rapidly building a civilization of totally loyal robots and cultists in a corner of the mountains that was not menaced by anything unbeatable. Vamp, meanwhile, played out how he bit the captain of the guards in our relocated village, forcing him to drink blood and address Vamp as father. Mason was increasingly traumatized and hopeless. He tried to liberate people from Lam and got around 1,000 people, which only really equals about 0.1% of the population. Ended up setting up a village of cool griffin shapeshifters there. Neat little project, nowhere near actually liberating Lam from its kind of totalitarian regime or whatever. The village got menaced by the nightmare monster again, and we could only drive it off once again, so we had saved people only to drop them into massive danger, apparently. Mason then got invited to a fancy party in a bizarrely pleasant mansion in Garden, hosted by a gracious woman who was the first kind and important person that he'd ever met. He enjoyed the food and discussing architecture. Then he found out that he had been tricked into eating person meat. The woman led him to kill lesser villains in the mansion. That was also a trick as well, because she wasn't actually an innocent victim as previously claimed. Mason then rescued maybe one civilian out of dozens because the ghoulish masters were so powerful the party of Godbound got driven off. Mason then had to abandon a sack of mice who'd been civilians that were temporarily transformed to smuggle them to safety. Oh, and when we found out that the woman was in fact in on all of this murder, Mason and Vamp tried to kill her. However, looking bored, she immediately lashed out with powers that would have killed us 2 demigods, might I add, if we didn't immediately back off. She ended up getting away while talking about how aren't humans the real monsters and fading away dramatically. Mason was humiliated, tricked into people food, barely able to make the tiniest dent in his main goal, guilty of aiding a vampire and slaughtering half a city by accident, and from a culture that says all supposed gods are evil and need to die. So, by this point, in character, can you maybe guess how Mason was feeling? So finally, at this point, we visited a place known as Patria, Vamp's homeland. There, we fought a giant monster we had only driven away before. There, we looked like total fools, causing a lot of property damage. There, we fled and flew back over a region with that giant gore doll spider. It was back again. Finally, we decided to check out a random patch of rumored danger, hoping we could clear a hex and fix the problem. Turned out there was an invisible, untouchable army-scale force of supernatural archers with homing arrows that shoot through walls and the ground and do divine-scale damage, inevitably, you guessed it, driving us off. So, what now? Asked the GM. Mason quits. He retires to Bright Republic, a relatively nice country, and tries to live in peace. You want to switch characters? No. The moral of the story, know just how doomful and bleak the setting is going to be by player and GM agreement. I think what our GM was going for was probably something along the lines of, every inch is crawling with unstoppable threats and you can't accomplish anything. Now, the way I imagined it was, the threat level rises inland from goblin tribes to dragons to potentially a few seriously scary demons, but you are able with your magic, amazing, mightful powers push the evil back. In this game where you're supposed to be world-changing heroes, I ironically had the best time before we reached that stage, while we were actually still kind of accomplishing something. Addendum. This same GM also briefly ran a game set in the Bright Republic. There, canon says that they treat magical people as superheroes and are dangerously unprepared for how powerful Godbound are. GM's interpretation was, no, yeah, they've got magic shot collars capable of brainwashing / forcing Godbound into obedience. So again, I think he's got different expectations. But hey, this would be okay if he and the players actually agreed on that interpretation going in. End post. So
every story we've read about Godbound has been terrible. Like, I've not heard a single good story in this in Godbound.
What's hilarious is I feel like it's got such great potential. I love this aspect.
Yeah.
I love this aspect of again, one of the things about D&D that I feel like is sometimes a bit aggravating or annoying or that's sorely lacking is if you have a party of adventurers who are doing all of these amazing feats and accomplishing all these things, a lot of time it feels like the world doesn't really seem to react to it at all. Like all of the feats that you've done and things you've accomplished, it's just like, oh, yeah, they're just isolated instances that nobody ever knows or hears about. This was why one thing that I really did love about the first Critical Role campaign, Vox Machina, was when they did some shit that was actually pretty impressive or astronomical. High-level people, they were known. They became famous. People heard about them, knew of them, and it legitimately affected the world around them. And therefore, the world's reaction to them.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of campaigns don't necessarily have that, where they're just you just do shit, and you're just oh yeah, they don't really even know of you or hear of you because it's all right, word travels much faster, especially for people in higher power and magic and shit, than I think a lot of people might give credit to. If some shit gets accomplished or happens, people are gonna hear about that. Bards, it's what bards are for.
Yeah, literally. I mean, I think there's instances, where you'll get recognition, but the only thing you really get is predetermined. Oh, look at them! We know who they are, but you never really get rewarded, or the rewards.
It just rewards
don't equal the.
Yeah, it doesn't reflect your accomplishments and the effects you've had.
Which, to be fair, I could say that about some of early Vox Machina as well. They did some stuff that you're like they should never have to want for most things, and yet they're still out here pilfering for loot. And obviously there is part of that in a tabletop game or D&D, or even I'm assuming something like Godbound. You do have to go do stuff to get things, but sometimes, yeah, I mean, this is along the lines to me as when someone is like, well, I want to run a gritty realism game, but their version of gritty realism is they just fuck you on every corner.
Yeah. You just cannot win. Win.
There is no positive. The cool thing about gritty realism is getting through something that's hard, and you get something for it, even if it's not much. You look at a game like Call of Cthulhu, where getting your hands on a gun or finding a good piece of evidence or something to stop an entity, or being able
to get a positive artifact that can help something. You it is a huge thing.
It's a huge deal because half of you will die every session.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I died 3 times in one session.
Literally, Call of Cthulhu is an absolute blender, bro. Unless you get really good rolls consistently, and even then it's still not guaranteed. But if you can get anything good, it's it usually does become a game changer. It really heavily contributes.
But
I mean, that's
even just survival in that game
is impressive.
Is helpful because you get more skill, you get better stuff, you get more points.
Yeah.
You level up, good stuff. But it's hard because, to me, listening to you read this, it's just someone who wants people to be miserable, and I don't know if they're completely ignorant of how they're treating these people, or
it doesn't sound like it, because it sounds very specific, because there's there's a part here where he literally is just oh, there's one person who's like trying to make a town comprised of like totally loyal robots and cultists in a corner of the mountains that's not menaced by anything unbeatable. Whereas everything that the Godbound seem to go and do, everything is like unbeatable and like or it'll regenerate or come back. Like there doesn't seem to be any true like positive progress that they're making. Everything is a slog. Everything is difficult and a struggle. And even when they seemingly overcome that, they're then immediately faced with the reality that, oh, surprise, you didn't actually overcome it. You just maybe temporarily did, or not even really. And I one of the things that I liked about this post is like, I've played in a number of games like that, where the GM does just like, you just can't win. Like you can't get up. Everything is just dark and bleak and everything is always against you. It's literally like we're in fucking the new DC comic series, The Absolute Universe right now. And even in the Absolute Universe, you still have individuals who are power. It's still DC. So you still have these ridiculously powerful people who are able to do crazy shit, even though like in this world, you know, it's supposed to be even more gritty, dark, and hard and terrible than most other universes, where it's just like the light never shines. It's so hard for good to prevail. But here, it's the same thing. I always hate playing in those games because again, even just in general games too, we're just like just let good shit happen, okay? Bad things don't always need like the GM. Your job is to be just as balanced in giving the party and having the world experience good things as you are in throwing and presenting obstacles, right? Enemies, bad things for the party to face, right? But the whole point is that you want your party to succeed. That's the point. You want good things to happen. You want your party, if they make good decisions, if they do good, if they're able to overcome and defeat the odds you've stacked against them, then give them the win. Give them the reward. Give good things. Don't just introduce bad things for them to constantly have to fight or struggle. Introduce good things that they can build upon, you know? They get an amazing village and they start to really prosper with their kingdom. Oh, they get a love interest and they can start building up a family or, you know, a dynamic like that for more than just constant battle and death and struggle. You know, oh, they're able to you know, save or rescue, you know, a powerful or really like a symbol of goodness, like a unicorn or something. You know what I mean? They're something. Like, don't just keep introducing, oh yes, evil crawls out from the nether realm looking to, you know, cause more crap. And you're just like, all right. On to the next shit, not really building or getting anything. Like, what's the point? What's the point at this point? And even in a game where literally the whole premise from what OP is saying is that you literally are gods that can change the world to your whim. That's literally the point. You literally get amass enough power to be able to actively affect the world. I love that concept. I think that's great. I think it's amazing. But it's like, what's the point then? It's literally against the premise of the game then. If all you're going to say is like, yeah, no, every attempt that you make to build anything or change anything is completely overturned by just an all-encompassing, never-ending darkness of evil and destruction.
Yeah.
Another thing that I noticed that also really sucks is when GMs try to like, you know, and I think this GM was kind of doing that where they were like, GMs, I think, make a lot of really bad mistakes when they try to do the whole, the gotcha moment. Where like, you know, oh, the heroes have these really good intentions, right? And they go into like a ruin or they go to like you know, defeat some evil enemy or something. And, you know, they fight, they defeat them. And then the GM wants to pull a whole like, oh, but in actuality, you didn't have enough information. And it turns out that person, you doing this creates a completely unforeseeable or unforeseen negative consequence that causes even worse, horrible things to happen. Even though you tried your best to be good, you had the best of intentions, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions, dear heroes. How will you handle this moral quandary now? It's like, bitch, There was no moral quandary. That wasn't a particularly clever or intelligent, like, gotcha, tricksy moment there where you literally just arbitrarily decided to be like, you know what? This is an evil person that we're fighting and everything, but I'm going to make it actually that they weren't actually evil. Like, most of the time, GMs, I'm sorry to say it. I'm sorry to say it. I don't know if anybody has, but I'll say it right here. GMs, most of you do not earn that well. I'm sorry to say, it is hard to really earn that moment. It is. If you're going to do something like that, it's going to take you having to set that shit up for like months of like showing little signs here or there. And in those months, your players could potentially notice what you're trying to pull. It's a risk. But the only way that you really earn that, if you really want that kind of narrative in your story, it's a hard thing to pull off. Because if you really want to earn it and you really want to get it and for it to actually matter and not just be you simply trying to force that shit and pull some shit out your ass and basically fuck over and rob the party of their accomplishment and their good feelings, as if you really earn and set that shit up. And that's, again, it's going to be risky. There's a high risk that your players will find out before it ever comes to fruition the way that you would like it to. But that's the only way you can do it. Because otherwise, don't do it. Don't do it. It's
difficult.
It's difficult, and it's an old, played-out trope. It's a played-out trope. It's so boring. Unless you can really hit it like you need to. It is a boring trope to try to subvert the expectations of, oh, the good guys are actually maybe not as good all along because your actions have unfortunately and unintentionally caused even worse problems. Like, come on. Like, come on. Like this GM was clearly just a very player versus GM mentality, where it was just like, just trying to force their characters to do all of the most heinous, fucked up, disgusting, degenerate shit. Like, again, literally the GM tricking OP's character into eating, people meat. Like, come on, man. Really? Why? Why was that? Did you give him an opportunity to maybe see through the illusion? Did you give him an opportunity to and again, of course, it's like, oh yeah, this is the first actually nice person that they have encountered in the world. Oh, but actually she's not, because the world is only filled with dark, horrible, terrible people and creatures. Like, oh my God.
But the dark, horrible, terrible creatures are what I want it to be filled with. I think it's just a case of like, you don't actually want your players to have fun. You want to have fun.
It's just what's this? You just want to torture your players. And then it's just like, GMs, can you just let there be good things? There can just be good things sometimes too, right? Hell, even in Berserk, one of the most infamously dark, gritty, fucked up universes and worlds, there are plenty of places that are just straight up light to balance out all of the horrendous darkness, right? When they literally go to fairyland, they go to the land of the fairies, the island of the fairies, or whatever. That place is just good. It's just nice. It's just a nice place. Now, we'll forget about how it basically got decimated and destroyed by Griffith and, plunged into the sea or whatever. Maybe. Who knows exactly what happened overall, because it's a magical land, so who knows. But either way, before that happened, it was a nice, beautiful place of refuge and healing, and it was nice. You can just have those places, and you should, because there's no point. If there weren't places like that in the world would already have been swallowed up by darkness a long time ago. It's not a good narrative way to go about it either. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work. Like, if you're like, the whole point is balance. If you're gonna have darkness, here's the thing, right? Darkness is usually much easier. Like, evil is easy, right? It's easier to be evil most of the time than being good, because good usually takes a lot more personal strength and sacrifice to be able to do that stuff. So it's easy to be. So evil can be a lot more abundant. But when you have good think of it like evil is the quantity while good is the quality, right? When you're good, there's far less of you, but the quality and the extent of your power and your intensity of your power and might is astronomically higher than that of evil, right? Evil is more prolific, it's abundant, but good is far more efficient and intense and extreme in its power and might, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how that usually balances itself out, right? Evil's got a lot more, got the numbers, but light has a lot more of the quality and like the extreme of power, the level of power. I mean, that's how it goes with, like, in D&D, literally demons, right? Demons in the abyss compared to angels. There are far less like celestials and angels than there are demons in the abyss. They're strong, but their biggest threat is their abundance. They are like an overwhelming wave. If the abyss can ever break free and start to spread fully, it would spread. But you literally get like the lowest level celestial against like one of the highest or a higher level demon. The lower level celestial will still probably more often than not decimate that demon. Easy. Because the lowest level celestial is still astronomically powerful. There are just not that many of them. And that's why they can't just go in there and decimate evil. Like, that's how D&D has done it for fucking decades. That's how they've always done it. It's the same thing.
There's less of them, but they're more upfront.
But they're far more powerful and effective. Like, same thing for devils, right? That's why the blood war is going on as long as it is. If the devils had as many as the demons do, devils are oftentimes they're just baseline stronger than demons. But demons, there's just so fucking many of them that they overwhelm them. Overwhelming force of just quantity versus quality. That's what it is. And GMs, you really need to start implementing that in every aspect of your world. Quantity and quality, or rather, you have to have places of good. Places, if it's going to be a grim, dark world, fine. That's fine. But then places of good, they need to be fucking powerful. And they need to be literal beacons in that world for light, for refuge and respite. Like, that's the point. That's the point of that. It makes those places all the more important and beautiful exactly because of that. And you need to allow the players to be able to have effects on that and have those things. Even make those areas themselves, because they are in of themselves supposed to be beacons of good. If you're playing that kind of campaign, if you're playing an evil campaign, completely different thing. Either way, that is how it goes. Any other thoughts you might have on this one, Sammy?
No, I think you said it quite well through all of your frustration.
Yeah,
it's just like this whole weird obsession with like making a game unenjoyable for the people playing your game is something I don't understand. And like, I know it's not always on purpose, because I've played games with people that I'm like, I don't think you're doing this on purpose, but your game is not fun.
Yeah.
But that's not always fair either.
It's just, the player versus GM mentality, or even player versus player mentality. I don't understand it. Like, this is not a competitive game for the most part. You can like make little competitive parts here or there, like, hey, we can maybe PvP or spar, or maybe we can like, do a skill check, competition or something maybe, or whatever. But even then, it's not really, it's a dice game. You roll dice. Even the most powerful dude, if he rolls shitty, could probably get, curb stomped by somebody who just rolls like a god, Like, even if the person should have, by all standards of measurement, technically won the fight or the skill competition or whatever. It just, So either way, it's just not, this game is not built for real competition like that. And people just are always trying to fucking like cram and insert competition in places where it's just like, you really don't need to. Why can't you be cooperative? It's not a competition, it's cooperative, okay? It's a cooperative game.
It doesn't have to be a competition.
I mean, it literally is not designed to be in any way, shape, or form. It's not. Technically speaking, it's not. Even because, again, it doesn't even have like a really great system for player versus player types of interactions. Like player versus player, deception / persuasion / insight / whatever. Like, it's like the game is literally not really designed for competitive type of play. You have to usually like make shit up to really input any kind of competitive type of play. It's all about cooperation, working together and supporting. And so, again, there's nothing wrong with healthy competition, but most people, again, are not inherently healthy. And so they usually probably can't inherently introduce healthy types of competition. But with that being the case, let's go ahead. Let's get into the next story of the day. Sammy, take it away.
Okay. I got my first D&D game and likely my last.
Oof, that's heavy.
Yeah. Alrighty, this is my horror story. Figured it's a bit of a rant and sort of a question if I overreacted. It's my first time playing D&D, and I joined a group online. Did an interview with the DM. Everything seemed interesting. The game was about a continent where humans were just starting to get a foothold. I made a character, a half-human fighter, noble with a noble background. Long story short, my character was wanted because he stole his family's sword, an elven blade, after his father was going to use him as a sacrifice in a ritual. I ran away, narked on my shitty family, and the humans who were mightily interested in a giant evil ritual offered my character a one-way trip out of my homeland to safety. The other three players are Rogue, Lucas, our cleric, Dwargen Steelguard, and worst of them, Liliana, our high elf wizard. Now, the rogue and
And
the cleric were tripping over themselves to simp for the wizard, likely because she was a girl, but I digress. They were mainly yes men in this whole clusterfuck.
oh my God,
Now,
no.
session 1 and 2 were rather simple. We got to the continent, fought some basic monsters for the new human government. We got tasked with going to visit the dwarves that live near the humans' landing zone with a diplomat as a show of good faith to our new neighbors. This is where shit hit the fan for me. As a throwaway, the DM mentioned I saw a wanted poster with my face and name on it. I walked over, took it down, and ripped it up. The wizard, who wasn't even in the same part of the city, metagamed it and asked me about it later. In character, my character was asked to roll charisma against the wizard's intelligence slash wisdom, I don't remember which one, to see if I can explain away what was bothering me. I roll bad and she doesn't. I mentioned it was something from my past and it was nothing to worry about. The wizard girl doesn't let up and casts charm person on me. And because I wasn't expecting it, I was told to roll at disadvantage. I got an 18 and a natural one. DM ruled that because I was charmed by her, I had to do as she told me. She demanded to know what was on the paper, and Charmed forced me to answer, so I did. I said I was a wanted man by elven nobility. Hearing this, the wizard decided to strip me of my weapons, chain me up, all while I was under the charm to turn me in for the gold. So I get dragged away from all the stuff and put in a room, chained, gagged, and basically everything to keep me as a prisoner. For 2 entire sessions, I was under the effects of the charm, meaning I wasn't allowed to talk unless I was told to, do anything, even in combat, I wasn't allowed to roll dice or choose any targets to hit. At one point, I left the call to go to the bathroom and came back 4 hours later with them still playing and my character still not being in my control. I get a bit of time during rest between casts to try to convince people to stop her mind control, but it doesn't work. So there I sat for 2 to 3 hour sessions, unable to actually play. I don't know if they meant 4 hours,
I'm not sure either.
but
There's
whatever.
there's a couple of things about this that are a little strange.
Yeah, but I asked the DM if I was wanted at the table. I asked for him to talk to the wizard. No dice. I told him that if this continues next time she uses concentration, my character might run or attack the party. This finally came to a head after the wizard used my mind-controlled fighter as a bargaining chip with bandits. Needless to say, the bandits didn't honor their word and attacked the party. The wizard got hit, lost concentration, and I got control of my character back. The wizard didn't survive the fight, and I ran after leaving the and I ran it after leaving. What?
Yeah, and I ran after it, leaving the game after the argument about me being a
Oh,
backstabbing
backstabbing
troll.
troll.
Yeah.
So yeah, mostly venting. Half how much of an asshole was I? Um. So this is funny for me. Uh, this isn't how charm works.
I hate it. I mean, this is always my this is always my biggest problem with these kinds of stories. I don't what I don't understand is if there is an effect, if people are gonna tell you, hey, you lost control of your character, you have to do everything I say. Why do people not like look up these spells themselves to like be like,
I don't
well,
know.
like this, like, because again, if somebody was really gonna try and tell me that I had to do something I didn't want to do, like to force me to do some shit, I'd be like, okay, where does it say that? Like why? Like why? Tell me why. Well, charm makes you do this thing.
Which it really doesn't.
Yeah, which is like, okay, does it though? Because like again, I get it. You know, oh, it's his first game, it's his first D&D game. Okay. But if people are like making you do that, like just I have such a problem. I have such a hard time empathizing and sympathizing because I'm just like, did you do any personal research? Did you do anything to think about how you could get out of this without just her losing concentration or anything? And like anything. Did you do anything to try and get and figure out a way to get out of this besides just sitting there and listening to what they were telling you? Anything? What did you do? Please tell me. Like, I don't, there's no way this could happen if the OP had researched the spell or anything else. Like, because again, it's just like, okay, you know, magic. You just you already see how these people are acting. They're already problematic. You've seen it. It's an issue, and you're just gonna take their fucking word for it that you just don't get to play anymore.
Well, that's the other thing.
You don't get to do anything. You don't get to do anything. Like
there is something to be said there for just straight up not arguing at all.
that's what I'm like. I'm having an aneurysm. I'm having a literal brain aneurysm because I'm just like it is anathema to everything in my being that this shit is happening. Where it's like, how did you anything? Okay, you didn't have to argue with them, right? Sure, you trusted them initially because you had the best intentions. You had no reason not to trust them at first, right? Cool. You've been tied up. You've been gagged. They are telling you can't do anything. Like, can I do anything at all? Like what? Like, is there any way to get out of, like, just take some initiative yourself, okay? Like, again, anything in the rules, because there's nothing in the rules, if you did any research yourself, if you know, nothing in the rules that says that you can't do something, right? There's almost never any point where you're not able to try or do something. That's literally the whole point of D&D, all right? Like I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a prick, right? Maybe I'm being a dick right now because I just like, I can't for the life of me. I can't for the life of me imagine just sitting there at a table and someone saying like, oh yeah, your character is completely and utterly, you know, whatever, with no ability to do anything. Your character is completely, you're comatose. You're a vegetable, essentially. Nothing you can do. And I'm like,
nah, man, can't do anything.
That's not how that works. That's not how that works. And people just take it. You're just gonna take that. You're literally just gonna take that. You're just gonna take their word for it. You're not gonna look it up. You're not gonna be like, okay, hang on. Let me see. Let me see if there's any loophole or anything I can find in charm person. And the moment again, had OP just looked it up, had OP just looked the spell up, and would just read the spell, they would have immediately known that charm person does none of what they're saying that it does.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. It's pretty standard for a charm person, yeah.
All it takes is just all it would have taken. At least for OP, I don't know. Maybe it would. Maybe even if OP knew, maybe he's still
the amount of hurt in your voice.
I can't, Sammy. I can't with this. Like I'm trying to be empathetic. I'm trying to be sympathetic. I'm trying to be understanding. Oh my God. It just induces such rage because I'm just like, it didn't need to happen. These fucking people. Oh God damn it.
But it did happen.
It did happen. So, I mean, I don't know about you, Sammy, but I think I do know about you, actually. I'm going to go ahead and put the Arcane Archives stamp of, you are not the asshole, OP. No, you're not the asshole here. These people are absolute fucking troglodytes, bro. Like, they're complete and utter, you said it yourself, they're fucking buffoons. They're idiots.
Buffoon.
They're absolute buffoons. Like they're just morons. It's just stupid. All of the other dudes at the table, I guess, yeah, were clearly simping the fuck out of the wizard. Even the
I don't know,
GM
dude.
included.
I want to play at a table where someone sims to me like that. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm sure
I
it
could do
would,
whatever I
wouldn't it?
wanted.
Yeah.
Just not give a
Everybody
shit.
just listens to you. You can command them however you want, like freaking dogs, and they'll do it. Yeah, sounds great. I don't blame her for staying at the game, but she absolutely is a total asshole too, because it was just like, bro.
Yeah. Also, like that's we're not even talking about the fact that that's not how you treat another player character at a table from a player
No,
standpoint or a DM standpoint. So
no.
there's so many layers wrong with this, and it gets worse the more you think about it. How about the fact that the guy stuck around as well, which is just as embarrassing as like why are you still there? Not to be like mean, like
I mean,
genuinely, but
I
why?
I feel like this is one of the biggest mysteries of the universe to me, Sammy. Is not even just in D&D, but this is just how humans are, right? This is how humans act, where people who are put in a situation where they're just like, yeah, this is just the normal behavior for people. This is the normal modus operandi for how this works. And people will just believe it.
Yeah, they
They'll
just accept it.
they'll just accept it. And they won't question. They won't like try to figure like, wait, really? Because this feels weird. This seems wrong and not fun or not cool or not okay or not good. But they'll just be like, oh man, that sucks. Like, yeah. I was like, what are you doing? You're not even gonna question it. You're not even like you're just gonna
Indeed.
take it. You're just gonna sit there and allow this shit to happen without even any kind of effort. Like again, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because I have a severe lack of context. Maybe OP did research. Maybe OP tried to learn things. I don't know. Did the comments say anything like that? Like,
No idea. It doesn't. No, it doesn't really. I mean, from what I saw, at
because
least,
like
doesn't.
another thing too. Hang on, another thing too. OP was a half elf, right?
Yeah, so they would have advantage on
They have
charm.
advantage. So OP doesn't even know their own abilities.
Well,
Okay,
so
okay,
equally,
you're
that's
new.
no
You're
offense.
new.
Equally, that's their fault for not looking at their character
That's what I'm
sheet.
saying. It's like okay, again,
But
okay, yeah,
I don't think it
they're
would have
new,
mattered.
but even that would have at least given them like some understanding or context to how charm works. They're like, oh hey, you didn't see it, you didn't expect it or see it coming, so you get
What it
disadvantage.
what did it doesn't sound like they knew the rules because I would have called bullshit on all of this immediately.
I
You
mean,
don't
it's
just
what
listen. Like yes, you should respect your DM and other players at the table, but like if it doesn't sound right, it's no most likely not right. You know
well,
what I like?
but yeah, like it, I guess again, it's because he has no context at all. It's his first ever game. He's never done anything else. So it's like, okay. But even I'm not talking about past experience with the game. I'm just talking about in general when something just doesn't feel or sound right. You have those natural insights, like real world insights, to be like, that doesn't seem fair, right? Doesn't seem fair. Like, so you're saying just because, like, what do you mean I didn't see it coming? So does that mean if I, bitch slap her, like she won't see that coming and I get advantage on the attack? Is that how that works? Like,
Yep.
what are you talking about? Oh God, I don't know. I'm sorry, OP. I'm not trying to come at you. I'm not trying to roast you or whatever. But I'm just God. This type of thing always just grinds my gears. It just roasts my giblets, man. I'm like, yeah. Oh, all right. Let's see. What are some of the comments down here? Yo, look at the top voted comment. Literally is. I mean, okay. So let's ignore the shit show that this was. First off, nothing about charm person says you must tell the truth. Also, you or your companions do anything harmful to it. I would say being chained and gagged is 100% harmful. Would love to know how you think you may have been in Arse, having been terribly PvP'd by the actual problem here and let down massively by the GM. Not even let down, set the fuck up, bro. All charm does is make you more friendly to the creature. As allies, you may see them as a trusted companion and more likely to open up, of course. Also, as a half-elf, you have advantage against charm. F the disadvantage noise. Surprise isn't a thing for spells unless that wizard was actually an arcane trickster. Anyway, don't give up on D&D. There are plenty of good groups out there. Just this one was bad. Like, Oh my God. Wait, hang on. What is this? What is this?
What?
The next comment says, it doesn't say it outright, but it is not a precise spell. It's a more generalized spell. So would you lie to a close friend?
Yes.
This dude got 39 downvotes.
You deserve all of them, buddy.
I don't know what that dude was advocating for. No, there is no redeemable aspect to this at all.
No.
This is just ridiculous, bro. All right. Anything else you got to say about this one, bud?
No. Your aneurysm was all I needed.
Oh God, man. Jeez. All right, let's go on to the next one then. Okay. I just need a second. All right. This story is titled, I left my group over a repeat Mary Sue player. Fuck me, we're doing this again.
Yeah.
By No Efficiency 8655. I've been playing D&D for a few years on and off, starting 5e back in 2015. My now fiance introduced me to a group a few years after this that had a few friends from high school that I used to play 4e with. Look, I didn't know any better at the time, okay? So I thought it would be fun. The GM was new, and a few players took advantage of that. But he improved for the homebrew campaign that he made after. Hooray! A steampunk fantasy game where we were playing as members of a research team. There we still... there were, I think they meant to say, a bit of a typo. They forgot the R and E. There were still some kinks to work out. We had 3 level 20 NPCs on the crew. Jesus. But the game was fun and combat was fluid. Okay. We take those. The problem was 2 players that I'll call Moth and Skull. Skull was a homebrew, get used to seeing that, skeleton rogue / fighter that was basically a variant human with the undead template. He would stealth away from the party and come back later, always seemingly completely unharmed, to relay scouting intel, cheat on rolls for both character creation and in-game. We were on D&D Beyond with everyone able to see roll history. The worst one I saw him rolling...
How do you cheat if you can see the rolls?
Yeah, literally. The worst one, I saw him rolling the same save 8 times and only mentioned the highest. His character was romancing Moss, which became central to the plot. Well, I think maybe he attempted to cheat, but they kept catching him, potentially, maybe. I don't know. Because, again, otherwise it doesn't really make sense. The much more problematic player was Moth, a homebrew half-dragon goddess, yes, really, artificer with connections to the crew via backstory that made her favored by every NPC. We'll call this one Dragon. Thought she was Moth. Dragon had a flight speed, natural weapons, a proficiency / day sleep breath weapon with no save, and a few homebrew magical items that made her the only one who could effectively research anything. Lord have fucking mercy on my soul.
You aren't going to get it that easy, bud.
Moth and the GM were personal friends, because of course they were. So she was able to get away with everything, because of course she was. Didn't want to make stats for her character, the GM just made it for her. Didn't want to make rolls, she could role play for nat 20s. Leaves mid-combat, all enemies ignore her. I almost lost my character after I left for the bathroom once, and she was always the solution to every major problem in the game. Dragon could sing beautifully and handle nearly every social interaction with a -2 to her charisma. Yeah. Repair our ship, an artifact level magic item, at level 5. Yep. And had an entire chapter in-game specifically dedicated to her character.
This is really good so far.
I feel like I'm having a stroke right now. What's happening? At one point, 2 other players, my fiance and one of Moth's friends, started a lesbian relationship.
Awesome.
Why did you have to specify lesbian? You could have just said relationship. Whatever. Moth started spewing a bunch of homophobic nonsense. Okay, that's why I specified. Cool. Spoke too soon. My bad, OP. Homophobic nonsense. Her friend was an actual lesbian, by the way. And I think had a hand in punishing the party in-game by making the GM have the captain of the crew, one of the level 20 NPCs, leave the crew behind out of having a broken heart. Oh, fuck me. He was dating neither one of those PCs, and now he had to make a new ship. Good God. But we made it through the arc. Dragon fell in love with Skull's character, and they retired to live out their eternal lives. They're eternal? They're eternal? What? We can finally let someone else have a chapter. Wrong. Moth's next character was worse. A homebrew race and subclass. Once again, a siren bard of the Deep Sea College. We had 4 bards at the time. You had 4 fucking bards in this party? Holy shit. Including myself as one for the original 2 in the game. We'll call this one Siren. Siren could cast spells ignoring material and somatic components, because of course she could, by singing alone. And she could still use these components if needed. So silence wasn't a counter. She had a swim speed, water breathing, and the ability to substitute consumed components for ones of equal value. She would go diving for pearls every time she needed diamond dust. That's not how that works.
I don't know. It's a pretty cool ability, though.
That's fuck.
That should be an artificer ability, I think.
You know, sure. You know what? Artificers, maybe they can exchange components for others of equal.
It's
or maybe
alchemy.
they can. Maybe you could use fabricate to change a component to something else or whatever.
Yeah, it's alchemy, equivalent exchange.
Sure.
I have to have 400 pearls.
This isn't Full Metal Alchemist, Sammy. Okay, like
but it could be.
It could be. Yes, it could be. She was trying to seduce a different PC, but got bored playing a support, quote unquote, a support character after 4 sessions, and had a big tearful send-off after being discovered Siren was a princess whose kingdom still needed her. Whatever, someone else can have a turn now, right? Wrong again! Moth's next character was a halfling warlock with a homebrew subclass called Hex Gun. Wow.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah. So they just basically retextured Hexblade to be a Hex Gun. So fucking original. It is exactly what you think it is. Who could summon her patron at a level 20 homebrew demigod patron without even burning a spell slot. Let's call her Hex. And yes, she started to try to seduce another different NPC, or another different PC. Not even an NPC, a player character. Hex was violent. She tried to shoot my character once, then complained when I cast Hold Person on her. Didn't take no for an answer and could use all Hexblade features and evocations on her guns. Oh, but the DM wised up this time. He made summoning her patron take a full action. Okay, requiring a nat 20. Requiring a nat 20. But still OP, but hey, much more fair. You know, okay. So, you know, in a way, it's sort of, kind of, but not really, sort of like Divine Intervention,
it's
right?
Sort of, kind of, not at all.
Where you had to roll a D100 and get your level or lower. The lowest being 10 at the time. But okay, you know what? Sure, it takes an action to do it.
This is great.
And she has to roll a nat 20. Okay, sure. You know what? You know, hey, let's forget about the fact that she can just spam that every 6 seconds until she gets her patron. Just, I'm going to summon action, nat 20, action. Oh, I got nat 20 finally. And there you go. So, you know, hey, you know what? Maybe not, you know? If you have a sufficiently strong enough enemy who, as she's just wasting time spamming that, can just absolutely nuke her with stuff, yeah. Sure.
Can I be honest? Not everybody's patron would be like a good thing to summon at any given time either, though.
No, but hers would definitely be, because obviously it just does everything the fuck she wants. It's a level 20 homebrew demigod patron. So why the fuck wouldn't it? These simp ass nigga motherfucker. I swear to God, I'm losing it. I'm losing it, Sammy. The player whose character she was trying to deduce was also much more okay with keeping it in out of session role play, meaning she took less screen time. The thing was finally starting to what the fuck is this sentence? Okay. Things were finally starting to become more about the party and less about her, is what I think you meant to say. Finally, we can move on. No new character. This time we had actual tragedy happen. Moth's grandfather dies, and she said she needed to leave the game. I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh at that. Jesus. That kind of just took me for a loop. I did not see that coming. My thoughts went out to her as, even after all the crap she pulled, I still felt terrible for her. Everyone in the group each bought flowers for the loved ones. I just know, I know there's gonna be some rug pull, Sammy. I know that it's not gonna be true. It's gonna be like a lie. Her grandfather never died.
Just a reminder that you picked this one.
I did. I didn't fully read through it though because I wanted to read some of this blindly, and now I'm slightly regretting it. But I'm hoping at least this might be entertaining for all of you out there. God, I know where this is going, bro. I just know it. I just know it. So the DM. Everyone in the group each bought flowers for the loved one's funeral, trying to give as much support as we could. She said she didn't have the heart to keep playing for now, so the GM closed the campaign early. I didn't get to do much in game, but I still had fun with out of session RP. Each PC got a text channel on a Discord server, and if you wanted to roleplay with someone, you just typed in their tab. The GM announced a new game he was working on that we could start the next week. This was great for everyone. No negative feelings, and Moth had time to mourn. A new slate that she could join in with later. Nope! She was there, as cheery as ever. Already had Skull make her a character for the game and everything. I was naturally confused and a bit annoyed. Many of us were. We found out later that she was bored of the setting and talked the GM into ending the game. Her grandfather really did pass away, though, and although I have no real evidence, it seemed like she used that to guilt the GM into starting something new. I shrugged it off. Hey, looking to the Discord server to back up all the old roleplay, it's fine. But she deleted the channel. Over a year of roleplay gone, as she only backed up her roleplay. I went from annoyed to furious, telling the GM about my issues and leaving the game immediately. Since I'm sure there will be the usual questions I see on here. 1, I did communicate with her and the GM. This usually ended in vague announcements to the server, hinting at problems that were supposed to be private. 2, I was typically quiet in the games, only talking when asked or there was a long period of silence. 3, only one other person was using Homebrew, a college of orchestra bard / not me, to a far lesser extent. 4, yes, I was one of 2 PCs not in a romantic relationship. Almost all of my characters are asexual. 5, my PC didn't outright hate any of Moths. My PC was curious about Dragon, didn't have time to care about Siren, and avoided Hex after being shot at. And 6, the only other character who had a major impact on the story was the other original bard, and only once. All others were Moth's PC or because of Moth's PC. End post. Fuck
me. That's amazing.
It just, oh God.
That's so good.
I can't.
I can't.
I can't with this, Sammy. This GM, this simp ass bitch of a GM.
Adam, what's wrong?
Holy shit, dude. Oh my God. It's so fucking clear. The writing is just so clear on the fucking wall. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. Look, you know what's hilarious? I've been in that position where there is clear favoritism to a player. Like I've been there. I've been there where a GM has clearly favored me more over other players. And upon recognizing it, I recognized it pretty immediately because he literally would start to give me level ups or extra XP because he was he liked my role play more than I guess the others role play. And so he started giving me extra XP. This is part of the Cringe campaign specifically that I've told you guys about.
Oh yeah.
And so, upon seeing that, I was like, okay, all right. This seems a little problematic, but you know what? Fuck it. Sure, fine, whatever. Even with that, I did not abuse that mechanic. I didn't specifically lord it over the others. I didn't specifically whatever. I was like, okay, this is clear favoritism. I did my best to still have the others, in the limelight, to highlight them, to support them. If there is favoritism to a player, never great, doesn't feel awesome, never great and awesome. But okay, say a GM is just kind of that messed up or incompetent. Fine. Players, it is then your duty, your moral obligation, we can say, whatever. Hell, not even moral obligation. Let's just say to make sure that the game actually continues to run smoothly or even have a chance at surviving. You have to be able to respond appropriately. Either one, be like, hey, I don't feel comfortable with all of this extra attention or extra, whatever. I I feel, like this. I feel a little bit weird about the favoritism. Have a conversation with GM and just lay it on the line for him if you feel uncomfortable with having that kind of attention and shit. Uh, or two, do what I did, I guess, and try to just okay, sure. I'm not gonna really call attention to it because I don't really think it would make a difference. I don't know if the GM would really listen to me because we already talked about that shit before. Really, like we already kind of like pointed out shit problematic stuff before. So whatever, and just at that point though, you got to do your best to just kind of like. 'Cause I think we read a story about this before as well about like a dude who was like clearly just giving the utmost favoritism to the OP at that point, and it's like, all right, this is a collaborative narrative story. So like if the GM won't give the other players chances in the spotlight, then you do it. Maybe try to subtly hint at the GM to be like, hey, these people should get some spotlight and some cool shit too. Like, say you get some magic items, right? You're like, all right, cool. Let's go to the shop and get everybody else some cool magic items as well, right? We got some gold. Let's go buy some shit for everybody to get cool stuff. Like, if a GM is just gonna be that way, at the end of the day, they're just gonna be that way. Because again, sometimes it's not necessarily like a GM might be doing it on purpose, right? Sometimes everybody's going to maybe have some favorites here or there based off of characters, role play skill or ability or just competency with the game, right? In terms of build or whatever. Like, it happens. Okay, GM isn't trying to play favorites, but in the scenario that they do, there are just multiple ways. Like, try to do your best to maybe, subtly suggest the GM, like, hey, you should maybe start also focusing a little bit on some of the others, giving them some opportunities too. If he's not responsive to that at all, then yeah, maybe you should have an actual open conversation discussion with him about like, hey, I've been feeling like you've been maybe favoring or maybe neglecting. Maybe don't even say favoring me. Just say like, I've been feeling like maybe like you can kind of neglecting some of the others a little bit. So maybe like, we might want to start focusing a little bit more on their story or their background or their character. Try to spread the love, as it were. You know what I mean? Like, don't just fucking like two people we've already seen here. Just take and use and abuse and run with that shit. It's so fucked up, bro. It's so fucked up. Never a better representation of power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? The moment fucking Moth gets any kind of power or influence, she just immediately abuses it and just fucks everything up for everybody else, bro. And to potentially use her grandfather's death as a tool to manipulate the GM even more. I don't even think she needed to do that, by all accounts, to be fair. But if she actually did, and honestly, with the way that she acts, I'm gonna be honest, I'd believe it. I totally would. I totally believe that she did that shit, 100%. Because people who are like this, they're just shitters, bro. They're just straight shitters, man. God damn. All right. Any other thoughts you have on this one, Sammy?
No, because you really just went all out on that one.
I seem to be doing that a lot this episode. I'm just
kind of today is your ranting episode.
I'm just going off today. I'm sorry, bud. I'm just
that's okay. Don't apologize. I think you deserve it.
I mean, I don't know. Like here. Next one, I won't rant at all. Next one is all yours, buddy. Next one's all yours. Promise. I'll let you take the whole floor, and I'll just sit here quietly. Go ahead and take it away, buddy.
Okay. Next one we have up is can a DM metagame? This is a short one, but it's more of a discussion topic. Play a D&D 5e campaign with my friends. It's a quest grind with no real story. I'm playing a cleric. My friend is playing a vengeance paladin, and at level 5, we had an issue with hold person. After my friend got hold person at level 5, my DM rubbed his eyes, looked at his phone, scrolling down and down. I soon found out that all the quests were changed from bandits, orcs, and other humanoids to undead to make the spell useless. But after I used turn undead on the zombies we were facing, he again looked at his phone, scrolled down, changed the quest to monsters and beasts, just anything that would not be affected by turn undead and hold person. That's about it. My problem with it is that he's actively making spells and abilities useless. To finish it off, here's a list of things I think he's avoiding for monsters. Low mental stats to combat my spell save. Low attacks bonuses because we both have high AC. Low damage or damage over time because of the paladin's high hit points. Low con and dex for the paladin's smites other than divine smite. Or just one high HP enemy because path to the grave plus paladin go burr. And that's all it is. Now, the reason I like this one is there is, I think, a discussion to be had about, is it cool or okay for DMs to quote unquote metagame? Now, here's what I will say. Metagaming is different when it comes to the DM versus the players doing it. Um, what I will say, and something that I don't like, is whenever a character gets powerful, the DM's first instinct is to then use monsters where their new powerful thing doesn't work. That's not fun. I'm not saying you can never build a encounter that specifically inhibits one member of your group. I think that's actually a very valuable way to make sure that you're not that a team isn't relying on just one person, because that does happen. Um, you'll get instances of groups relying on, more often than not, just a single member of their party for everything, um, which is not super fun, I would say. I understand why it happens, but it's not very fun. Um, so the way that I look at it is like, the moment a character gets a cool thing like that, you don't immediately go for, hey, let's make it so that person's new cool ability is useless. Um, it's not very fun. It's not a very fun thing to deal with as a player. And it is not cheating because it's not. But
No.
it is I would say a bit cheaty, a bit it's kind of a fuck you moment to your players. It's one thing if, you have a character that is like, say, I'm gonna use cleric as an example. Depending on the kind of cleric you build, you do not have a large amount of ranged or mobility options. You don't get the same kind of teleport spells that wizards, sorcerers get. You don't have super high range spells like a sorcerer, wizard, or warlock. Um, in some instances, you are not the most mobile or the most offensively effective. I had an instance where I was playing an arcane domain cleric, like high level, in a game with friends. And what ended up happening was we fought an undead, like a Draco Lich. Now, the Draco Lich obviously has a lot of movement speed and was able to very easily ignore me because I could not get to them.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And it was annoying because, you know, it sucked for me. It wasn't, I didn't feel targeted by it. It was just what we were doing in the game. It wasn't an issue of like, oh, what the fuck, man? Like, no. It really wasn't that terrible. Um, but I could see like some people being probably pretty mad about having to deal with something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna judge anyone too harshly or, anything like that. But I don't know. It's a tough one because, as a DM, you're not being mean, you're not necessarily being an asshole.
No.
It's just sometimes you get to, I think if every encounter, like, it should stay in theme, in my opinion. So like if you're on a quest to fight bandits, why are you changing them just because someone's effective at it? The next quest can be different. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm playing in a Horde of the Dragon Queen homebrew campaign. A couple of us are really good against dragons. Like, we have anti-dragon
I was gonna
abilities
say you'll have a
slash
lot of weapons
weapons.
and agree, yeah, and
Yeah.
abilities and gear.
Um, is my DM just going to get rid of dragons from the campaign? No. No, they're not. It doesn't make any sense. Does it mean every encounter we have is dragons? Also, no. There's limits to, I think, just fucking over someone for being good, for their class being effective. I don't think that's the right way to handle it. Um, it makes me annoyed. And I think it's just a poor way overall to handle that kind of thing. It's not fair to the people in your party. It's not fair to treat them
I
that way. It is it's lazy. It's lazy.
I mean, it's lazy, and it is just and I don't think it's just opinion, it's just blatantly unfair. Like I agree. Like I think the top voted comment here says it best. Like, can a GM metagame? Of course. Can a GM create encounters that's specifically made to hinder some abilities? Of course. Should a GM make sure that you're useless against any opponent? Yeah, no, that's too far. Challenge is necessary, especially in a game like this. Asking a character to dodge a bullet shot at point blank range after making sure he was tied to a rock is not a challenge. And that, I think, sums it up very nicely, where it is just like, you can't. I think this is something we've talked about many times before, right? In terms of just arbitrary challenge, right? Just because something is harder doesn't automatically mean that it's better. And if you're gonna make something harder simply by, like you've said this whole time, like basically just making certain abilities that you have completely and utterly useless. It's just like, yeah, nope, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't fit. It's like, I think it's fair to do it sometimes, right? Especially if you're maybe facing like a more ongoing bad guy or nemesis who gets wise to your abilities or tactics, and might be like, yeah, he can maybe start to deliberately plan on how to take you guys down. But you certainly can't start making every single encounter that you set up or have essentially be a direct counter to specific powerful or cool abilities. Like, to literally be like, he's a cleric. One of their biggest things is turn undead. You want him to be able to use that ability. You want him to shine. This is, again, this whole player versus GM mentality. He has hold person. He can only unless he casts at a higher level, they're only level 5. Unless he casts it at a higher level, he can only get one person, 2 people at max at this point. And they still have to make
are that fucking unbalanced.
Yeah,
one whole person ruins everything.
Yeah, and they still have to make saves for that to even work at all. And then every round they can keep making it again. Like, there are many ways that it's not, these aren't busted or broken mechanics. They're powerful aspects, sure, but in no way are they unfair or crazy by any means.
No.
It's just another, it is just another fucking bullshit, like, player versus GM mentality, where you're just like, oh, I have to make it so my players can't just steamroll or can't. They're not necessarily guaranteed to steamroll. You could potentially just roll really well and get out of the save. You could make the save. They could roll really poorly and miss the enemy multiple times with their attacks. That's just part of the game. And they're supposed to be powerful. They're adventurers. They're supposed to be rare people and individuals that can do this.
There's only 2 of them. Like, I would get it if you had like a bunch of players at a table that are all using the exact same strategy to just steamroll all of your stuff. Like, you have a whole table of clerics just being annoying, being shitheads. But like,
there might be more of them, but still,
but like, you have two players
who have one has hold person and the other has
turn undead.
Which
turn undead, not an overpowered ability.
That's what I'm saying.
It only applies to them if you don't do damage. Like, you can't hit them once you do. Like, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, none of it's just a clear FU is what this feels like. It's literally just like, FU, you don't get to use your abilities or play the game. Like,
it's like, what's the point of me being here?
Yeah, like, what am I doing? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, like, I really don't.
It completely defeats the purpose. Like, why did I choose this class then? Like, are you gonna say I can't I can't cast spells at all? Then, like, I have a huge issue with that too. With plenty of GMs who are like, yeah, you can't use this spell, this spell, this spell, this spell, this spell, or this spell because it's just too busted and unfair. And it's like,
Like, wait a minute.
you can give your our enemies those spells too. Like, you
Yeah, it's
can
not
do this shit too. Like again, and as long as once again, sure, here's the thing: if people do just spam it, or if people, I think more often than not, a lot of people's problems with spells or feats or abilities is because people often use them incorrectly.
that
Is
too.
they'll use them incorrectly, and people won't like look it up or check it to make sure it's the right way, and so they'll just abuse it, and then people will start to get a bad thing from it. They're just like, well, you can't do, like, again, the lucky feat, right? The
Yeah,
old lucky
lucky.
feat.
Oh,
Like the old lucky feat. The new one is basically just like, oh, you can just basically get advantage on a roll now. Sure. The old lucky feat though also wasn't nearly as bad as people make it out to be, because
no.
every instance of how a person like complains about the old lucky feat was like, oh, they get to roll like 3 times against the save. No, they don't. They don't. It's just one extra dice. That's it. Literally. Oh, hey, they rolled, they failed, they can choose to roll again. That's it. It's not that powerful. Anybody who allowed them to be like, oh, lucky, damn, I failed. I'm going to use lucky again. They can't do that. The ability literally states it's one, you get 1 lucky point per dice roll. Like, whatever, even if you roll advantage, you only get 1 extra dice, and then you just replace one of the advantage dice. It's not, you don't get like the super advantage, whatever, technically speaking. It's literally, hey, you get to roll 1 extra dice, and you replace, like, you can choose which dice you want to replace, basically. It's like you just re-roll that dice that you rolled. That's it. That's all it is. And you get that, you got that 3 times per long rest. It's not that busted. It really isn't. Like, technically speaking, the new one might be a little bit more busted almost, because you get as many luck points as your proficiency bonus. And technically speaking, it is just advantage now. So I don't think you can roll and then choose to re-roll again, though I think people still play that way. But either way, I guess because it doesn't matter, whatever. You can still just be like, yeah, I'm getting advantage on this roll. That's all it is. It's not that bad. Yeah, if you have a person who's like, I'm gonna re-roll it again. Damn, I fuck. I'm gonna re-roll it again. Damn, I fuck. I'm gonna re-roll it again. Like, yeah, that can be a lot, but that is you misusing the ability. The only feat that I would say is ever ridiculous that I would never like let in my games, and I think I've said this before, would be the Sentinel feat. That's like the only feat that I think I would never allow in my games. That's the only banned thing I think that I would ever ban, because that feat is legitimately just stupid, busted for no, and not in an interesting way, in my opinion. It's just dumb, in my opinion.
No, Sentinel's really fun. Why are you?
Yeah, it's really fun when you can just like
Don't get rid of my favorite feat.
a
Didn't they already? They already
gnome.
got rid of it in the new version.
No, they have it. It's still
Oh,
there,
Sentinel's
and they
there?
didn't change it at all.
Awesome.
Of all the feats
Awesome,
that they
dude.
didn't that they didn't touch, that they kept exactly the
Great.
same, of all feats, why did they not do anything to
All
Sentinel?
right, I'm
They
bringing
changed
back.
mobile. They changed lucky. They changed fucking great. What they changed? What
Wait,
was
they
it?
changed mobile?
Yeah, it's not the same
No.
anymore. It's called Speedy now, and it is
Oh,
markedly
mobile's
less good, in my
mobile's
opinion.
really good. Oh, my melee dwarf sorcerer build is still on the up and up with Sentinel.
Oh, God, I know the Sentinel is still
That's crazy.
terrible.
Well, combine that with weapon masteries, and you're really creating an issue as well.
Literally, like, it's
Oh,
just
that's really
like,
bad. Who
yeah,
got? How did they get
it's
away with
bad.
that?
I don't know, man. I really don't know. It's one of the great mysteries of the universe. Again, how they did not change Sentinel of all feats in the 2024 remastered edition of Dungeons and Dragons 5e. Either way, anything else you got to say about this one, bud?
I think we got a good
Boy, all right. Well, acolytes, apprentices, I do believe that that's all that we have for you today. Then, if you guys have stuck with us this long, we want to thank you so very much. We hope that you appreciated and you enjoyed and were entertained by the absolute, just primarily just me ranting for the vast majority of all of it. Losing my goddamn mind, popping a goddamn blood vessel, probably. Again, be sure to like and comment down below what you guys thought of all the stories that we've read today, about any potential topics or aspects of any tabletop RPG that you might want us to check out or talk about. Again, we're also interested in branching out into some other, into some other games and systems and stuff. We already talked a bit about Call of Cthulhu, about, Godbound and some other ones and shit. Be sure to subscribe and share the channel, of course. We appreciate it. Hit that notification bell. And with that being said, we'll be sure to check you guys next time when we dive back down into the archive. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
So long.